Hello, and welcome to Own Your Retirement. My name is Albert Lalonde from Kaizen Financial. If you'd like more information about what you hear during our show today, give us a call at 586-752-7008 or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialgroup.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen. And while at my website, click on my podcast page to check out our past shows and to subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. All right. One of the most common questions I get from my clients is, am I ready to retire? And to answer it, I sit down with them and walk through their entire financial strategy. Now, sometimes the clients get the answer they want, and then sometimes they get an answer that, well, disappoints them, though usually only temporarily. With that in mind, on today's show, we're going to discuss some potential signs that you're not quite ready to retire. But before we unravel that question, let me introduce my co host, Tony Shore, who better not be ready to retire anytime soon because this show needs him. Hey, Tony.
Well, the show doesn't need me as much as it needs you, Albert, but and no plans to retire. I want to keep doing this as long as I can. I love sharing the microphone with you and our listeners out there. And this sounds like a great topic, by the way.
Yes.
Signs we might not be ready to retire, seeing where we're at. Are we ready? Signs that we're probably not yet ready. But I think the key is to work with somebody like yourself, and we'll dig into that. But
Yeah.
first, Albert, how have you been? You just had an event, right?
Yes, been doing very well. We just had our State of the Economy event we do every spring and talk about the markets and the economy as well as, what's happening with this new administration and all the talks of tariffs and
Yeah.
Logi, all of that. So it was a good event. About 320 of my clients showed up and,
Wow.
we were able to
Wow.
talk about I guess, the things that mattered most to them and what was important is that they understood that they were all fine and because they all have a financial plan.
There you go. Yep. They've got a plan in place. They'll be fine. There are going to be market ups and downs. We got a little spoiled the last couple of years, but now we're seeing some correction territory. But I
Sure.
know your advice is don't panic. Work with
You
an
got it.
advisor, have a plan, don't panic, right?
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, that's the three-legged stool. You need at least three legs to stand on, and it's have a plan, don't panic, have a plan, and work with an advisor right
there
there.
you go.
Um,
Perfect.
but this topic today, where do you want to begin with this, Albert?
Well, let's begin with the article titled 10 Signs You Are Not Financially Okay to Retire from Investopedia. It presents some outstanding facts that I think we'll like. In fact, the first sign that you may not be ready to retire is struggling to pay your bills. If you're having a hard time covering your bills while working, retiring won't make things any easier. In fact, in general, retirees need basically about 75% of their pre retirement income to maintain a comfortable lifestyle. Now, this income typically comes from sources like Social Security, 401k plans, IRAs, pensions if you're lucky, and personal savings. Now, the key question is whether these sources will provide enough to cover your expenses and allow you to enjoy retirement. The article also notes that while costs like, let's say, commuting and dry cleaning may decrease, expenses for entertainment and travel could rise. And it's also important to factor in taxes and healthcare costs. Now,
Mm.
depending on your total income, your Social Security benefits may be taxable as well. And then most pensions are subject to taxes, and withdrawals from your traditional 401ks and IRAs will also be taxed. Additionally, without a job, you'll lose access to employer sponsored health insurance. And if you're 65 and older, well, Medicare is an option, but it's not entirely free.
Yeah, great point. I mean, it's hard to pay your bills. If it's hard to pay your bills now, it's going
Mhm.
to be really hard when you're retired. So that seems like good old fashioned common sense to me, right?
Sure, for sure. Now, the article also points to carrying a large amount of debt as another sign that, well, you may not be ready to retire. Carrying significant debt into retirement can put a major strain on your savings. And if possible, try to reduce or eliminate credit card balances and car loans. Now, depending on your circumstances, paying off your mortgage or downsizing could also provide long term financial relief. And then while paying down debt before retirement may mean working longer than you like, the financial freedom of, man, not having that monthly payment and that black cloud over you can be well worth it. Now, eliminating debt, including your mortgage, also means avoiding costly interest payments that can erode your long term financial stability. That said, deciding whether to prioritize debt repayment or retirement savings, well, that can be challenging. So, if you have a loan, let's say with an interest rate equal to or higher than what you might earn in the market, typically, let's say around 6 to 8%, paying off that debt is, well, often the better choice because it may guarantee a return. However, if your mortgage carries, let's say, a lower interest rate, like 3%, and is tax deductible if you itemize, contributing more to your retirement savings may be the smarter move unless you have a poor track record with investing, Tony.
Yeah, and deciding what to pay down before retirement is a great reason to meet with somebody like
Mhm.
yourself, Albert.
Yes, definitely. In fact, the article next highlights not having a plan for your future big expenses as another sign you may not be ready to retire. A financial services professional quoted in the article advises against waiting until retirement to handle the major foreseeable expenses, like, let's say, replacing a roof, repaving a driveway, buying, let's say, a vacation home, or even purchasing a new car. These large costs can quickly add up, and especially when withdrawals come from taxable accounts, requiring you to pay taxes on every dollar taken out. Now, the article suggests addressing big expenses before retirement to minimize their impact on your portfolio. So, let's consider this example. You need, let's say, a new roof costing $7,000, a driveway repair for $4,000, and a car with a $10,000 down payment and a $300 monthly payment. Now, in total, these expenses require about $21,000 upfront. But if you're in the 24% federal tax bracket, that means withdrawing nearly $28,000 from retirement account before taxes. And then additionally, the $300 monthly car payment would cost you $400 in pre tax dollars, Tony, which could take a significant portion of your Social Security income.
Wow. And like you've said before, those unexpected expenses, like replacing a roof, they don't care that you're retired, right?
Yeah,
That's going to happen.
definitely.
The
Yes.
unexpected expenses you have now can also happen in retirement.
You got it. And
Yeah.
while you're working is the best way to take care of those things.
Yeah.
Now, another clear sign that you may not be ready to retire is, well, not being sufficiently familiar with your Social Security. So, even if Social Security isn't your primary source of income in retirement, it's still an important factor to consider. If you haven't yet estimated your benefit amount, the Social Security Administration provides a useful tool to help you calculate it. Now, many financial services professionals suggest delaying retirement until you reach your full retirement age, if possible, because that's when you qualify for your maximum monthly benefit. But claiming your Social Security as early as age 62 reduces your monthly benefits by 30% compared to waiting until your full retirement age. But working those extra 4 or 5 years not only increases your monthly benefit, but may also boost it further by adding more high earning years to your calculation. And then additionally, postponing retirement gives you more time to build your savings while continuing to earn a paycheck.
Yeah, that's huge. Now, if our listeners out there have questions about this as we continue the show, how can they get a hold of you to set up that no charge, no obligation consultation, Albert?
Listeners, you can visit my website at www.kaizenfinancialgroup.com, Kaizen, Kaizn, or call my office at 586-752-7008 and discuss how we can answer your questions and address your concerns about preparing for retirement, your financial strategy, or any other parts of your financial plan. Remember, it's our goal to help you prepare for retirement so you can own your retirement.
All right. Yeah. Own your retirement. And that's what the show is all about, and about being financially responsible and having a financial plan. You've been talking about some reasons we might not be ready to retire, some signs that we're
Mhm.
not quite there yet, and things you definitely need to do before you retire. You talked about not being able to meet your current monthly bills, carrying a large amount of debt, not having enough emergency fund to planned out for future expenses or unexpected expenses. What do you have for us next?
Well, let's stick back with that Investopedia article titled 10 Signs You Are Not Financially Okay to Retire, which also lists having a monthly financial plan as another sign that you're not ready to retire. In fact, once you retire, your paycheck stops, but your bills don't. And that's why it's crucial to map out your monthly cash flow in advance. Planning your cash flow, well, it involves deciding when to start collecting Social Security and estimating how much you'll receive, as well as determining how and when to withdraw from your retirement accounts. And if you have both, let's say a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA, you'll need to consider the tax implications. Traditional IRA withdrawals are taxed and subject to required minimum distributions, or what we call RMDs, but Roth IRA withdrawals are tax free and don't have RMDs. So, a solid plan may also require, let's say, a clear understanding of your expenses. Ideally, you should review 2 or 3 years of actual spending categorized to identify trends. Now, some costs, like let's say debt payment, may decrease, while others, like healthcare or travel, could rise. Knowing your expected expenses helps you determine how much income you'll need each month. With that information, you can then assess whether your savings are sufficient for retirement or if you need to keep working, save more, or adjust your anticipated spending.
Well, yeah, I can't even imagine heading into retirement without knowing how much money I had coming in and out. You want to have that spending plan in place before retirement.
For sure. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
most important part of retirement is how are you going to spend your money? So cash flow is very
Right.
important to figure that out. Next, you can't hit into retirement without, let's say, a long-term financial plan. It's essential to understand how long your savings will last and what level of spending you can actually sustain during the coming decades. While no one can predict their exact lifespan, longer life expectancies and rising long-term care costs may require your portfolio to last longer and stretch further than you originally hoped. Now, there's an ongoing debate about the ideal, let's say, annual withdrawal rate from retirement savings. The well known 4% rule suggests withdrawing 4% of your assets each year, which is generally expected to make your money last at least 30 years in most cases. But planning for a 30-year or, let's say, longer retirement is wise. You know why? Because according to actuarial data cited in the article, a 65-year-old couple has a 50% chance that at least one partner will live to 92 and a 25% chance that one will reach 97. So, to ensure your savings last, you'll need to determine a sustainable withdrawal strategy based on factors like your health, the investment portfolio, and your risk tolerance, Tony.
Yeah. Well, and working with somebody like yourself is going to help as well, Albert. I mean,
Mhm.
you have to have a plan that's going to align with a long-term financial strategy, right?
Yes. And with that long term financial strategy, you have to take inflation into account, future
Uh,
inflation, you know?
Yikes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're already feeling that now. In fact, the article warns that you can't head into retirement without preparing for that future inflation because it does impact both your daily expenses and the long-term value of your savings. Now, let's say at a 3% inflation rate, the cost of living will double in less than 25 years. Well, within a typical retirement time frame. Now, as of January 2025, inflation stood at 3%, up from 0.9% in December of last year, 2024.
Hmm.
Now, failing to account for inflation is a common retirement planning mistake and can significantly impact your financial security over time. With longer life expectancies, managing your money wisely is crucial to keeping pace with or outpacing inflation so you don't risk outliving your savings. Now, Treasury inflated protected securities, what we call TIPS, offer a safeguard by adjusting interest payments to match inflation and are considered safe due to their U.S. government backing. However, during volatile periods, TIPS may not always provide the expected level of protection that we're used to.
Okay. So what would be a better solution then?
Well, let's say to achieve investment returns that surpass inflation, stocks may be a key option. But remember, an 8% annual return is effectively only 5% after accounting for a 3% inflation. So keeping too much of your portfolio in cash or low yield investments, let's say like CDs and money market funds, can
Mhm.
actually shrink your purchasing power over time. And while you might not feel the impact immediately, Tony, it could lead to run out of money sooner than expected. And with that said, during market downturns, maintaining some cash reserves can be beneficial, allowing you to avoid selling stocks at a loss when prices are down. So, striking that right balance between growth and stability, well, that is essential for long term financial success, Tony.
Right. And we always say, hey, a 30-minute show isn't enough time to really address all the risks and rewards, as well as the rules and regulations that come with investing, and everybody's situation is different. So
Right.
I would say if investing is part of your strategy, it's vital to work with somebody like yourself. Pick up the phone, give Albert a call, right?
Yes. 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 Now, let's say another big sign that you might not be ready to retire is if you're consistently worried about your post work life.
Mhm.
Even if your finances are in great shape, you may not be mentally ready to step away from working life. In fact, work provides sometimes structure and purpose for a lot of people. And the prospect of a lot of unstructured time ahead, well, can feel more overwhelming for some people than exciting. And if this sounds familiar, consider maybe a second act by working part time or even volunteering for a cause that matters to you. Remember, without a plan, boredom can lead to overspending, which may drain your savings faster than expected. In fact, the article also suggests test driving retirement to get maybe a realistic sense of your financial needs and ideal living situation. Now, depending on your savings and expenses, retiring in, let's say, a high cost city might not be feasible. However, by getting clarity on your income sources and cash flow, you can make informed choices and maybe approach retirement with greater confidence.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that. And this has been a great show so far. What is that phone number our listeners can call?
Folks, you can get a hold of us at 586-752-7008.
All right. And what do you have for us here in the final segment?
Well, let's stick with that same article from Investopedia, 10 Signs You Are Not Financially Okay to Retire, and now explains that you aren't yet ready for retirement if you aren't regularly working with your financial service professional to rebalance your portfolio. A passive investment approach may work when you're younger, allowing time to recover from the market downturns. However, as you are near and entering retirement, it's wise to rebalance your portfolio annually to prioritize income generation and asset protection. Retirement portfolio management typically focuses on four key principles: diversification, capital preservation, income generation, and risk reduction. Diversifying across various asset classes, like let's say stocks and bonds, and industry sectors like healthcare and technology, helps safeguard your portfolio's value during market fluctuations, as gains in some areas may be offset with losses in others. Now, capital preservation involves selecting investments with lower volatility to minimize drastic swings in portfolio values. Dividend paying stocks from, let's say, well established companies, as well as index or exchange traded funds, often referred to as simply as ETFs, that include such stocks, can provide a steady income stream. And then by maintaining diversification and steering clear of highly volatile assets, you can actually effectively manage risk and create a more stable financial foundation for retirement.
Yeah. I mean, just like your car needs regular maintenance, like oil
Yes.
changes, your financial strategy also needs regular maintenance too, doesn't it?
It definitely
Yeah.
does. Now, let's talk about another part of whether you're ready for retirement. Let's say that you still enjoy your job. Reaching full retirement age doesn't mean you have to stop working. Take Warren Buffett, for example. He's still going strong in his 90s, right?
Yeah.
Not because he needs the money, Tony, right? But because he loves what he does. Now, if you generally enjoy your work and look forward to working each day, well, then there's no reason to stop. Beyond financial benefits, work keeps your mind engaged, provides social interaction, adds purpose to your days, and fosters a sense of accomplishment, all of which can contribute to a healthier, happier life as you age. And additionally, staying employed might allow you to keep your employer's health insurance, which could maybe offer better coverage than Medicare.
Yeah, that's healthcare costs and health insurance costs are definitely something you have to look at, and you need a strategy to minimize that cost burden, especially as you head into retirement. Now, maybe you could give us a sense of some things that go into retirement planning. I guess I'm guessing probably some of our listeners out there who haven't started the process yet could use some tips, or maybe they're curious about how much time they'll have to invest in this.
Yeah, building a solid retirement plan starts with first defining your long term financial goals, assessing your risk tolerance, and taking steps to achieve those goals. Now, while you can begin planning at any point during your career, the earlier you start, the better. Oftentimes I get a lot of people that come see me and they said, "Oh, I wish I'd have started this 5 years ago, 10 years ago." Well, guess what? Starting now will get you going. The process involves identifying income sources, calculating your expenses, implementing a saving strategy, and managing your investments. Now, estimating your future cash flow helps determine whether your retirement income goals are realistic. And then regularly reviewing and updating your plan. Boy, that is the essential part of staying on track. And then you'll also need to factor in anticipated future expenses, liabilities, and life expectancy to ensure your financial strategy throughout retirement is secure. And yes, there's a time commitment that comes with working with a financial service professional, but if doing so stabilizes your retirement, it is well worth it, folks.
Agreed. What are some of the eye-opening retirement stats? You mentioned this to me earlier that you were going to talk about some of these statistics today for our listeners out there.
According to the Retirement Income Institute at the Alliance for Lifetime Income, more than 11,200 Americans will turn 65. That's the traditional retirement age every day through 2027. Now, however, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis predicts that the peak 65 trend will start to decline after that year, likely due to the decline in birth rates following the peak baby boom in 1960. Now, by 2035, the Social Security Administration projects that approximately 77 million Americans will be 65 or older. As of December 31st, 2024, nearly 90% of those already in this age group were receiving Social Security benefits. In fact, in 2025 alone, nearly 69 million Americans are expected to collect a total of about $1.6 trillion in Social Security benefits this year.
Wow. I mean, that's
Mhm.
huge. Some of those stats are really eye-opening, and you have to take that to heart. It just illustrates why you need a plan and why you need to work with somebody like yourself, Albert. I know you love helping people in the community. You've given us a lot of great food for thought today. I hope our listeners find some inspiration in that and will meet with their financial professional, or if they don't have one, get a plan in place.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. Folks, listen. The article basically emphasizes that the biggest sign you're not ready to retire is being unable to confidently answer the question, am I truly prepared for retirement? Transitioning into retirement is a significant life change that requires thorough planning and preparation. So, meeting with your financial services professional can help you assess your financial readiness, rebalance your portfolio, develop a strategy to pay down your debt, and review your expenses. They may also provide guidance on the emotional aspects of retirement, drawing from their experience working with others who have faced the same decision. So, but ultimately, the choice is yours. But having a clear plan, wow, can make all the difference, folks.
Yeah, huge. Well, Albert, before we go today, why don't you let our listeners out there know how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, folks, you can visit my website at www.kaizenfinancialgroup.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen, or call my office at 586-752-7008 and discuss how we can answer your questions and address your concerns about preparing for retirement, your financial strategy, or any other parts of your financial strategy. Remember, It's our goal to help you prepare for retirement so you can own your retirement.
All right. And that does it for today's episode of Own Your Retirement with our host, Albert Lalonde.
Take care, everybody.